The champion New York Knicks just got turned down by a player they genuinely wanted, and the reason behind it says something bigger about the center search that's dragged on all summer. At the same time, this franchise just swept one of the biggest nights in all of sports, cementing this championship run as one of the most decorated in recent memory. And looking further ahead, there's already speculation building about which Knicks might represent their countries on the biggest international stage of all. I've gone through every detail of all three stories, every quote, every award, every insider report, and I'm going to walk you through everything right now. So before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because we've got a lot of ground to cover today. Let's start with the story that's the latest chapter in the Knicks' ongoing center saga. Jonas Valanciunas, one of the most in-demand free agent centers available this summer, had a genuine opportunity to sign with the reigning NBA champions. Instead, he chose to return home, agreeing to a deal with Žalgiris in Lithuania's professional league rather than joining an organization that had just captured its first title in 53 years. On the surface, that sounds like a confusing decision. Playing for a champion in Madison Square Garden with a roster this talented is the kind of opportunity most professional basketball players around the world would jump at, even at a discount. But the reasoning behind Valanciunas' choice actually makes a lot of sense once you hear it in his own words. This wasn't a case of the Knicks failing to make a competitive offer or losing a bidding war to a rival franchise. This was a genuine values decision from a veteran who's already accomplished plenty in his NBA career and simply wanted something different for this stage of his life. Valanciunas, a 34-year-old native of Lithuania, explained that the process leading to his decision was long, involving many conversations, but that ultimately his home country played a massive role in where he landed. According to comments he made on Žalgiris' own channel, he talked about how much the club and the broader basketball culture in Lithuania had impressed him over the years, and how he simply wanted to enjoy the game again on his own terms. He specifically said he just wants to enjoy basketball. A simple but telling explanation from a veteran who spent well over a decade grinding through NBA seasons far from home. For a player entering the twilight of his career, the pull of going home, reconnecting with family, and playing in front of fans who followed his international career for years clearly outweighed even a championship opportunity and the appeal of the biggest stage in basketball. This decision matters for the Knicks well beyond just missing out on one player. It's actually the latest entry in a growing list of center pursuits that simply haven't worked out this offseason. Earlier in the summer, New York made repeated calls to the Pelicans about young center Yves Missi and got nowhere. They pursued restricted free agent Moussa Cisse with an offer sheet, only to watch Dallas match it within 48 hours and keep him in Texas. They lost out on Day'Ron Sharpe, who chose to re-sign with Brooklyn instead, and on DeAndre Ayton, who simply exercised his own option to stay in Los Angeles. And now, Valanciunas, an experienced veteran with genuine starting caliber production, chose Lithuania over New York for reasons that had nothing to do with money or opportunity, and everything to do with something the Knicks front office simply cannot compete with: the pull of home. 5 separate pursuits, 5 separate outcomes that didn't go New York's way is a pattern that's becoming impossible to ignore heading into training camp. It's worth remembering exactly what the Knicks lost at this position too. Mitchell Robinson, the longest tenured player on the championship roster, signed with the Boston Celtics in free agency, leaving a genuine hole behind Karl Anthony Towns and Andre Drummond that the front office has been trying to fill ever since. Every single one of these failed pursuits adds up, and while none of them individually feels like a crisis, together they paint a picture of a front office that's simply run out of easy answers at the position that matters most for a team defending a title. The good news, if there is any, is that this front office has shown real patience all summer, consistently choosing to wait for value rather than overpaying out of panic, which is exactly what happened when the Sissi pursuit fell through and New York simply pivoted to a cheap one-year deal with Andre Drummond instead. Whether that same patient approach eventually produces a real answer at backup center remains to be seen. But for now, the search continues without an obvious solution in sight. Now let's shift to something considerably more celebratory. Because while the center search has been a genuine headache all summer, this franchise just had one of its biggest nights in recent memory away from the basketball court entirely. The New York Knicks completely dominated the 2026 ESPY Awards, held for the first time in over 25 years back in New York City at the David H. Koch Theater at Lincoln Center. The Knicks walked away with the award for Best Team, becoming the first NBA franchise to win that specific honor since 2022, a fitting cap to a championship run that ended a 53-year title drought for the organization. The ceremony itself carried extra significance too, marking the first time the ESPYs had been held in New York City in more than 25 years, giving this particular Knicks team the rare privilege of celebrating a championship on a stage located right in their own backyard. But the real story of the night belonged to Jalen Brunson individually. Nominated in 3 separate categories, Brunson swept every single one of them, taking home Best Athlete in Men's Sports, Best Championship Performance, and Best NBA Player. Think about the company he was up against for that Best Athlete honor alone. Nominees that included soccer legend Lionel Messi, baseball superstar Shohei Ohtani, and NFL MVP Matthew Stafford. Brunson beat out all 3 of them, becoming the first New York athlete in the awards history to ever take home that specific trophy. His Best NBA Player win was also historic in its own right, marking the first time a Knick had ever won that particular honor since the category began being tracked back in 1993. And his Best Championship Performance award came directly from his legendary 45-point outburst in the closeout game of the finals, a performance that included 13 consecutive points in the fourth quarter alone as New York finished off San Antonio. Brunson wasn't the only Knick honored that night either. OG Anunoby took home the award for Best Play, recognized for his iconic tip enduring the Knicks' historic Game 4 comeback in the finals, the exact shot that's already become one of the defining moments of this championship era. Between Brunson's 3 individual wins, Anunoby's Best Play honor, and the team's Best Team award, the Knicks swept 4 total trophies on the night, an almost unprecedented haul for a single franchise at an event that honors athletes across every sport in the world, not just basketball. It marked the first time this organization had ever produced this kind of dominant showing at the ESPYs, and for a fan base that waited over 5 decades for a championship, watching their team sweep the sport's biggest annual awards show was its own kind of victory lap. Brunson's own words during his acceptance speeches added a genuinely emotional layer to the night as well. Each time he walked to the podium, he made a point of thanking his family for what he called sacrificing everything day in and day out, and when the team went up together to accept Best Team, he extended that gratitude to the entire Knicks organization and every one of his teammates. It's the kind of moment that resonates beyond just basketball fans, a reminder of exactly how much work, sacrifice, and support goes into building a championship-caliber career, let alone an entire championship-caliber franchise. Now let's look a little further down the road, because winning a championship doesn't just change a franchise's trophy case. It changes its visibility on the international stage, too. It's been a genuinely long time since an active Knick represented their country at the Olympics. If you don't count Evan Fournier's brief stint in 2021, since he hadn't actually suited up for New York yet at the time, the last Knick to play in the Olympics was Carmelo Anthony back in 2016, winning gold with Team USA in Rio de Janeiro. Part of that drought comes down to simple roster quality over the years, but insiders also point out that the Knicks never really had the kind of national and international profile needed to get their players onto these rosters. Winning a championship tends to solve that visibility problem instantly. And this current roster also happens to be considerably more multicultural than past Knicks teams, giving multiple players a realistic path to representing countries beyond just the United States. OG Anunoby is one name worth watching closely here, given his ties to Great Britain through birth. Unfortunately, Great Britain has already been eliminated from qualification for the next major FIBA tournament, going just 1-5 in a group that included Italy, Lithuania, and Iceland, which makes his Olympic path considerably more complicated heading toward 2028. Jordan Clarkson represents a more realistic, near-term Olympic story. He's played for the Philippines as recently as the 2023 FIBA World Cup, averaging 26 points a game in an effort that ultimately fell just short of qualifying for the Paris Games. At 35 years old heading into the 2028 cycle, it's entirely plausible Clarkson gives international competition one more real shot if the Philippines can find a way back into World Cup contention. And then there's Karl Anthony Towns, whose ties to the Dominican Republic could give him a realistic path to Olympic competition of his own, depending on how that program's qualification process unfolds over the next 2 years. Jalen Brunson's situation is a little different since he was actually snubbed from the Team USA roster back in 2024 despite a strong case for inclusion. Whether he and any other Knicks ultimately end up representing their countries in Los Angeles remains genuinely uncertain this early, but it's a storyline worth revisiting as qualification tournaments start to take shape over the next couple of years. There's also a broader mood worth mentioning that ties both of these stories together. Team owner James Dolan recently said he expects this title defense to be the most enjoyable season of his entire ownership tenure, following a summer in which the roster is coming back, in his words, pretty much intact. That phrase, pretty much, is doing some real work there, since the center spot remains the clearest exception to that continuity. And the Valanciunas situation is just the latest reminder of that gap. Even so, the broader sentiment from ownership reflects genuine confidence in what this roster has already built, and the belief that the Knicks are now the team every other contender in the league is building to catch, rather than the other way around. So here's where everything stands. On one hand, the Knicks are still working through a center search that just added another disappointing chapter, watching veteran Jonas Valanciunas choose a return home to Lithuania over joining the reigning champions, extending a summer already filled with missed opportunities at the position. On the other hand, this same organization just enjoyed one of the most decorated nights in its history at the ESPY Awards, sweeping 4 trophies and watching its captain become the first Knick and first New York athlete to ever claim some of these individual honors. And looking down the road, this roster's growing international makeup means the next Olympic cycle could finally end a Knicks Olympic drought that stretched back nearly a decade. It's a genuine reminder that even during a triumphant offseason, roster-building challenges never fully disappear, and even during a frustrating search for a backup center. There's still plenty to celebrate about what this group already accomplished together, and plenty more to look forward to as this era of Knicks basketball continues to unfold. So tell me what you think. Does the Valanciunas situation worry you about the Knicks' ongoing center search? Or do you think it was always a long shot given his ties back home? Which ESPY moment stood out to you the most? Brunson's historic sweep or Anunoby's best play honor for that unforgettable tip-in? And looking further ahead, which Knick do you think is most likely to represent their country at the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you catch every update as it happens. I'll be back soon with more Knicks New.